Okay, we're back, we're live, we're here at Think Tech. Think Tech, known everywhere. Think Tech giving you the best possible content. This is what we do, content with a message. What's our slogan again? Let me get it straight. It's media that matters, right here on Think Tech. We deliver, yeah. Okay, we have special guests today. We have Manning Taite and Derek Esibill, and they're both from Pacific American Foundation. I'm going to let them describe how that works. Okay, and I'm just being the Uber host, if you don't mind, just sort of standing in here. My name is Jay Fidel. I live in the studio,
Well, thank you very much, Jay, for letting us come in and kind of share what we're doing and how we're actually working with students in environmental education to better understand the coastline. And we are actually a program. Actually, Nalu Studies is the program that I'm affiliated with.
And that's under Pacific American
Yes,
Foundation.
so the Pacific American Foundation is an organization that focuses on the marriage of culture, so Hawaiian culture, and science, real science. We work with K through grade, basically educating the public,
Yes, we do.
educating young kids, educating college students and little kids, and on all aspects of understanding science. So the thing I really is important to understand about Pacific American Foundation is it really work with fish ponds and a lot of coastline areas with the students to help them better understand their role as environmental managers. And that was something we want to discuss today. But before I go into any depth, I want to...
let's talk to Derek. Derek, what part of that do you agree with?
I agree with all of it. and there's more.
And there's more.
So that's
Okay.
just the tip of the iceberg on this. And one of the things that we're looking at is this concept of collective impact, where it takes really a community of scientists to raise a scientist and get kids real-world experiences and real opportunities that merge in with classroom experiences and classroom learning. So bringing real science into the classroom and bringing kids out of the classroom and into the field and into their communities so we can synergize science, community service, and education.
And I want to add a point, okay, because we've been doing Aloha United Way for a long time, and we know about the social safety net. So if you give kids science and you engage them in this kind of environmental activity, you're keeping them off the streets, which is really, really, really important in our state. So I'm going to turn it over at this point, you guys. I guess first we're going to say this is where the road leads, and it's Ted Ralston's show, and we negotiated the title of the episode. It's Kids, Coasts, and UAVs, an exciting story of coastal management. Okay, Ted Ralston in Tucson, Arizona. Take it away, Ted.
Thank you, Jay and Manning and Derek, for putting up with my absence today. And Joe Correa sends his apologies. He's on Kauai, stuck over there on a project. Otherwise, he'd be joining you because this is something essential and critical to him. Anyway, Ted Ralston here, your usual host on the show. We're actually today in the Southwest USA Extension Studio of Think Tech Hawaii in Tucson.
We have them everywhere,
Everywhere we go, we've got studios of Think Tech Hawaii.
Coming to a continent near you, yeah.
Right, coming to a universe near you, as a matter of fact, and always in the public service. And Jay, it's great to be part of this team and just watching the show go on here. It's just fantastic. By the way, the artwork in the background is contributed to the studio here by my 6-year-old granddaughter, Greta. And so that's what you see decorating our background here. The reason Margie and I are in Arizona is because we are actually in Iowa, which is even farther east, earlier this week at the Iowa 12th Anniversary Homeland Security Conference. And there's an incredible tie here between what you guys are talking about and what we discovered here in Iowa. We came on the mission of unmanned air vehicles and how they assist and help in emergency management. And of course, you know our little friend here, who is always present on our show, came along with us on the trip.
What's your friend's name, by the way, Ted? Have you named your friend yet?
That guy's name is Insadai, and here's what it looks like when you see the action end of it. In any case, Derek knows this system very well, and Manning will sooner or later. But what was intriguing to me is the people in Iowa are dealing with their form of coastal management, and they're using UAVs, or they want to express and to understand what's going on there. They have an incredible desire to hook up with you guys, because what they're dealing with is resilience, community involvement, and K through 12 education. They haven't quite gotten into the cultural component yet, which is the leadership we can provide.
Yeah.
So we had some discussions with them about that, with what took place at Primo last year. So we're sitting on a bubble here of a communication between you guys and the folks in Iowa dealing in the same basic area. One has to concern itself with ICE, the other doesn't. And I'm glad that we don't have to be the ones to deal with ICE. In any case, and as Jay knows, there's no monologues involved in this show, so what I'm doing is not a monologue. But what we've got is the connector here that ties these all together is the UAV, which is a new evolution of information collection and allows us to see things from a point of view we've never seen before, not putting people at risk and not harming the environment in so doing, and expressing quickly and effectively to the needs of the people who are doing the tasks what they need to see from a new perspective. There's a lot more on UAVs that have developed this week, and I'll get into those as we go on, but I just wanted to say that's kind of how this all came together. And I will speak on Joe's behalf at that right time. But Manning, I think we've not had a chance to have you on the show before.
Yes. I've actually been here once before with the UH Law School, talking a little bit about Nalu studies and our students working in environmental science to better understand what's going on. So, but again, thank you for having me here again.
Okay, and Derek, you've been on by representation through Cindy Hunter, who's been on once or twice and such. So we're kind of all the same family here. Any case, Manning, talk a little bit about the Nalu program. I was intrigued by that title and how deep into Nalu it goes. I mean, I said,
actually, we're really fortunate because my teacher for Nalu is right here. Both of us actually teach the program, and Nalu is an acronym for Nature Activities for Learning and Understanding, and it really gets kids, just like Derek said earlier, gets them into the environment and the role of the scientist. So they're actually collecting real-world data, applicable data, and using that information is actually ported to our partners, such as DLNR, which we'll talk about here in a minute, to help them make decisions. So there's a lot of organizations that are just, really in need of information and data, but they're understaffed. And matter of fact, even with NOAA, we're looking at NOAA having a lot of people retiring here as they come up, and who's going to replace these people, right? And a lot of these organizations. So we're seeing our young folks as these are career opportunities for them in coastal management, environmental science, marine science, biological sciences. So who, better than the organizations to partner with to get our kids actually working in the field with them, doing the work they do with the scientists themselves. And I think what's really important is that we can train them at a level that they can collect real data and accurate data, and that data can actually be sent to some of our organizations for publication and supporting some of the understanding of what's going on. So Nalu focuses really on the at-risk and the at promise. And I'm getting to the point where I'm really getting kind of annoyed with that term, because at-risk implies a lot of things. And I just met with Judge Browning at Family Court yesterday, and he was talking about really what is at-risk, right? If you look at the definition, divorce, different things, we're all at risk at some level. But we look at kids that come from challenging situations, and we give them an opportunity to work side by side with a scientist and learn what they're doing and make a difference. They see value in themselves as a contributor to the environment, contribute to better understanding what's going on out there, and it really has made a significant difference.
And they love it.
They love it.
They love every minute
Well, the
of it,
thing that's interesting about it with Nalu is that it really takes kids from, we have kids from Olamana, and I'll tell you a quick story. One of our students from Olamana, actually, he did a project on bioluminescent bacteria. And I have to give thanks to Seymour and to Dr. Greg Stewart, who mentored this kid, Kua,
Tremendous job.
to a level where he actually won the district science fair. And he was actually struggling to graduate. And he got his high school credit, a year's worth of science credit through us, and a college credit. But to his own credit, he actually put that project together with Greg, and he presented it at the state science fair. And I remember when he told me, he said, "Can I win at district?" I said, "It's not about winning, it's about presenting your information." And he won. And they said if he wins science fair, he'll be flown to Washington, D.C. to present
And he did.
against the other
That'll
states.
change his life.
He went. He won and he went. And it has changed his life. He's now a full-time college student at Winwood Community College, and he's pursuing a career. So, I think what Nalu does, I think Judge Browning put it really well, it cracks their perception of themselves, opens up their thinking that they are much more valuable, can contribute at a much higher level than even they would perceive themselves
That's
as.
called confidence.
Definitely. But they don't have that at home. And I think that's what Derek and I have really experienced, is that they go home and they come back and they're struggling, right? So I think our program, it runs 6 weeks in the field with scientists, but really having fun. And we try and get them out and they do leadership training, but just having a great time outside. But they're learning about science as they're having fun. And one of the kids said, "Yeah, you tried to trick me, man." I said, "What do you mean I tried to trick you?" He goes, "I learned about the coral reef and I was surfing." I said, "Well, most surfers want to know about the coral reef." And then we have 2 weeks of intensive, all day, every day. Derek, what, 12
hours
a day, 7 days a
It's-
week for 2 weeks. It's very, very intense. And when they get through that part of the program, they do everything from DNA extraction, bioassessment, PCR, they pour gels. It is very intense. Our partnerships like Fish and Wildlife Service allow us to go out to their site and we do research out there at their location. We're partnered, like Derek said earlier, with all kinds of organizations. So we're very blessed to have this opportunity and provide these kids with this opportunity. But upon completion, they have quizzes every day, Jay. I don't know how law school is, but every day they get hammered. And after at the end, they take a final exam, they produce a paper, and then they present to the public. There's about 120 people in the room. A lot of these kids have never spoken in public, but they're presenting on environmental issues that they have an affinity for. And
That'll change your life too.
It does, and it's
Yeah.
very deeply blended with Hawaiian culture. And if we look at that, back in the day, 200 years ago, pre-contact, there was no difference between culture, science, and religion. It was all one.
Yeah.
And for the Hawaiian people to actually manage this place without bringing anything in, it took tremendous effort and tremendous insight and tremendous observation. And so here is a culture steeped in that observation and science, and connect kids on that level, bring it to an emotional place where they can develop aloha for their aina, and then have an opportunity to malama aina, and to learn about how we do things today and how science actually operates.
This is great.
This will actually help them. I mean, we're looking at having these kids. It's funny. I think people say it's a science program, and I think yes, it is. And Wired, we'll talk about in a minute, and PACES, but it really is a program that teaches them the value of themselves, to make responsible decisions as our future community leaders. I was talking to someone today.
You're building a generation.
I am.
That's-
We are.
yes,
We
we
all
are.
are. Yeah, and
Yeah.
you are too. But I think that
Well, actually, I'm only building a break. We're going to have a break now. One thing at a time.
Yeah.
Okay, this is Manning Tate talking and Derek Esibill talking. They're from, they're from Nalu, but they're also Pacific American Foundation.
and Wired.
And Wired. And we have on
Paces.
the far end of things in Tucson at our Tucson studio, which is now world known. We have Ted Ralston, and this is Where the Road Leads, and we're talking about kids, coasts, and UAVs, and we haven't even really got started. Next time we come back, let's talk about coasts and UAVs. Okay? We'll be right back.
Will do.
Aloha, my name is Josh Green. I'm a senator from the Big Island. I work in the ER there. But on Tuesday afternoons, I get to come and spend 45 minutes to an hour with Jay Fidel and the Think Tech staff. They're terrific professionals. They help us to bring some of the leading cutting-edge topics here across our state to you. So you can join us at our show on healthcare in Hawaii to talk with leaders from across all the spectrum of health in our state, or you can join us for any other show where we talk about economic development or tourism or some really eclectic programs too. So really, we'd love to see you here on our show. Thanks for joining us and thanks for supporting us.
Hey, we're back. Guess what? We're back. We're here on Where the Road Leads. And in Tucson, Ted Ralston is joining us as the host. I'm Jay Fidel. I'm the Uber host. That's not a car company. Okay? And we have Manning Tate here in the studio with Derek Esibill. So where do you want to go now, Ted?
Let's talk about the UAV component here, Jay, that we've spoken of so many times on this show in the last 2.5 years, and assisted Derek in his efforts down in Lanikai and in Waimanalo and such. And
The Wired program.
Yeah.
yeah, and hoping to help Manning in the future. But what I was more struck by than ever is that discussion you just had about the cultural component, the understanding of the environment, and before the Western bureaucracies turned on, there was a different way to think about things. We've got to capture that. In fact, that's actually tied to language to a certain extent as well. English doesn't support that as much as the Polynesian languages do, which is a really interesting aspect. But what I was saying earlier as we began the show was that Iowa, again, I'm not, just bragging about Iowa, but Iowa would very much like to understand what you're doing and capture as much of that and tailgate on as much of what you're doing as they can. And last year at Primo, as you may recall, we even had Native Americans in, I think from Oklahoma or somewhere, who were dealing with the same situations down there. So we have the issues in the Pacific, we have issues in the continent, and as much as you might think the Pacific and the continent are different, they have extremely common cultural forces that are threatening them right now.
And that's one of the beautiful things about Hawaii is examining our watersheds here, which are very short and well-defined, has a much broader look at when you get into continental watersheds that are massive. And so these explorations that our kids are engaged in, especially in the Wired and PACES programs and with Nalu Studies to an extent, we can really take that and share these methodologies as well as what data we're seeing at how land management practices impact our environment.
Well, and in the case of the large watersheds here that we experienced this week, they are so large that they tend to lend themselves to the scientific measurement, and they kind of diminish the cultural component. We've got to strengthen the cultural component and have a broad understanding that everybody's tied together, and the culture is an equally important part of that. And that's where you guys are leading the way, and that is so useful here. I think feeding back into the Iowa domain.
One canoe.
Can I drill down a little bit on exactly what the science is? You're talking about data. You mentioned Manning data.
Yes.
Now, what kind of data are these kids gathering? How do they gather this data?
I think, and with Nalu, we have specific things we target, water quality. But I think I want to turn that over to Derek, because I think what Wired does, Ted, is really an outstanding job with these science organizations of collecting specific data that's helping specific organizations, move forward. So, Derek.
So what we're getting kids out doing is using sophisticated instrumentation like YSI probes, where they're getting very accurate measurements of dissolved oxygen, temperature, salinity, pH, total suspended solids, chlorophyll A concentrations. They're running nutrients. They are filtering for dissolved and particulate organic carbon, and then they're also extracting environmental DNA, and really soon they're going to be actually culturing to compare cultured water samples with environmental samples where the kids extract DNA, and that gets sent off for sequencing and teaching them the bioinformatics on that. And what we really need to build in is some more UAV stuff, so we can have some wonderful aerial images and multispectral imagery of what's going on, in addition to the water chemistry, the DNA, and culturing of organisms. And one of those that we had cultured.
It's very sophisticated.
It's very sophisticated.
How do you see the UAV aspect of this developing? What do you want from Ted?
What I want from Ted is
How much time do we have?
Exactly. How much time do we have, and how much money do we have?
Yeah.
Because and if anybody's interested in helping this, we need help with this.
Yeah.
But Ted, one of the things that we would really like to do is not only map our coral reefs and have some high-res imagery there, but also the ahupua'a, and going up and tracing water as it flows from ridge to reef, and looking at that, as well as I know that DLNR is clamming on to the data that we're providing to them as far as the water quality goes, and they're very interested in some high-res maps of Kawainui Marsh.
And Kawainui Marsh is certainly number one on the hit parade from Chuck Burrow's perspective and from the local Kailua side. And Alawai is, of course, a man-made, completely different situation than we have in Kawainui. But
and that ties in.
Kent Cheryl.
Right, and that the whole Alawai Watershed Project is partners with us, and we are actually combining our data sets to one database that will be available to the public online.
Yeah.
To have a
one thing, the other thing with the AEVs is, I think for us, there's a lot of issues that pop up, and I know, whether it's coastal degradation, and we just, having access to your technology would allow us to get those, aerial shots. So we look at, how is coastal degradation affecting our coral reefs? How is, sand moving off, you're creating off the beaches, having an impact on the health of those reefs. And we need those aerial images, and we need longitudinal data. So not just one snapshot.
Exactly.
Really get something over time.
time.
So we see things change, not just season to season, but year to year. As we build more homes, how is that impacting the reef? As we, build more parking lots, how is that affecting, what's going on out there?
And it's interesting, especially that this year is an El Nino year, and the just extreme weather changes that we've had. And
We're not finished yet.
oh, I know.
No, it's coming.
Oh,
That's a whole other topic for a whole other show.
We've seen more bleaching than we've ever seen. I think this is a really...
Right, and with Kaneohe Bay now being designated as a Smithsonian Marine Geosite, they're going to monitor Kaneohe Bay for the next 30 years. It's one of 10 in the world. And so this bay is very important. And I know they're engaging right now in some underwater 3D imagery, but if we can have lay that on top of UAV imagery and have a virtual fly-through from 1,000 feet all the way down to the bottom of the ocean.
So what do you say, Ted? Can you help? You have
Yeah,
the technology? Do you have the equipment? Where do these guys
He's
go?
thinking, why did I invite these guys on my show?
Let's do it, man, and load me up. We took away 30 requirements or recommendations or needs from the Iowa gang this week. A lot of what people are doing is trying to tie together the emergency operations, which are very similar to what you're dealing with in environmental management, just at a different pace, and get the infrastructure 24/7 to get the equipment and the capability in place to support the environmental work and disaster work simultaneously. So there's that need, without a doubt. We have great developments in the ability of UH actually to move forward in programs through an administrative arrangement with the University of Alaska, which has FAA authority. That's moving in the right direction.
Great.
The technology is certainly moving in the right direction, as Derek has seen, and I don't think we've shown it to you, Manning, but we showed it Joe out at the Kahala Beach side there.
Yep.
And in miniaturization and resolution and incredible extraction of information from imagery. These aren't your father's pictures anymore.
No.
They're feature decomposition out of the pictures, and even things like what's called fluid lensing, to use the ripples on the ocean as a way to get a prismatic look into the deep, as opposed to having it becoming a problem. These are incredible developments, and it's so cool to be able to introduce the kids to these developments, because they could see these things faster than we can.
And they're our future engineers. I mean, the kids are developing things left and right. And I think, that's where PACES and WIRED really come in. PACES is the Pacific Center for Environmental Studies. And that program, it's a grant that we put together, 11 years ago through HIB and Winter Community College. And the idea was to take 24 kids, no two kids from the same school, on 6 teams of 4. So, we not only learn about the environment, we learn about, you went to Iolani, I went to Nanakuli. So we learn how to work together. It's the communities working together, but these are kids. So they don't have these political agendas yet, right? They don't have political agendas, right? So that's worked very effectively, to the point where our kids were invited to the White House, to Washington, D.C. to present a few years ago.
Pretty good.
Right, so, and it was outstanding. And what we saw is that we brought kids back from the previous year to mentor that next year. Same thing we do in Nalu, and probably what we'll do in Wired
do
as
in
well.
Wired, yep.
Is mentoring is critical. But then the mentors come back and they actually help to train the next group of kids coming into the end of the session.
How old are these kids?
Well,
6th grade through 12th grade. And so we've got some outstanding 6th grade data that Wired, which is an acronym for Watershed Investigations, Research, Education, and Design, have collaborated with Oceanit, just
Sure,
right
right
across the street over here.
Small town.
I know it, and have done a tremendous work in remanaging waterways in Kailua.
Yep.
And so that's been just remarkable, and we're very interested at UH in the microbial department over there, the Department of Microbiology.
Seymour.
Seymour.
Seymour is marine.
Seymour, both
Big
Seymour
store,
with folks there and with folks in other departments, and in seeing how that reunification of waters is affecting the microbial communities. As we all know or don't know, that we're really dependent upon that microbial base for everything that we see. And so I think, was it Madonna had that song, We're Living in a Microbial World?
True. Well, so Ted, you know, how would this work now? I guess I'm asking also, how does it work right now, and how does it work in the ideal sense?
my feeling is, can we train some of our kids? Can our kids work with you to understand how to use some, what these pieces of equipment are, how to use it? Because like I said, they're moving up fast. The next generation is coming up real quick. And
I think we absolutely can. I think we need to start with what the end effect desired is and work backwards from there. What's the end effect? What's the imagery? What's the sensor? What's the vehicle? What's the analysis process? Work it that way as opposed to starting with the vehicle itself. This thing here is just a skyhook, and it happens to have a bunch of cameras on it. We can change the cameras and fly the mission in a way that's appropriate for what your needs are. But that's the important thing. In fact, the kids can probably see that faster than can the adult part of the community. Everybody in the adult part wants to start with the UAV. No offense to any adults who might be on this show or watching it, but that's how it works. So that's possible. But what there's so many things we could talk about. We had on the show last week Brendan Brennan. I can't remember which name is first, which name is last. He is associated with the Department of Education on the island and the state, and they are looking for a UAV-oriented program that collects all the pieces you're talking about in the K through 12 domain.
Yeah.
And he's an educational architect trying to put together a program wrapped around that would prototype in Manoa, and then, which sounds like Alawai. In fact, he's already hooked with Ken Kaneshiro and the Alawai Water State Gang. And then that could then be piloted to Lanai, which is another strong interest we've got, and then push the rest of the state. So we want to make the connection with what you guys are doing and what Brendan's targeted to do. You have the initial steps in what he wants to turn into an architected educational program. We have the Applied Research Lab at UH ready to step in with some additional manpower to help, grad students who can help put together pieces, get information, look at prototype concepts and such. So we have capability, we have a desire for an architected, structured educational approach, and we have the human values and the connected.
But you also have challenges.
Well,
You have challenges because we are in an environment for UAVs that's not yet complete. We're dealing with new regulations, new risks.
Yeah.
And right after this break, Ted, and you guys, I'd like you to talk about what the challenges are as far as you see those challenges and how you're going to surmount those challenges. This is Think Tech. We're talking about kids, coasts, and UAVs with Ted Ralston, Manning Tate, and Derek Esibill. We'll be right back after this very short break.
Aloha, this is Reg Baker, and I am the host of Business in Hawaii. We talk about positive stories of businesses in Hawaii, how they have been successful, and how they have overcome some of the obstacles that a lot of us encounter when we try to have a business here. And believe it or not, there are a number of positive stories here, and we want to talk to all of you. So we broadcast live every Thursday at 2 o'clock, and it rebroadcasts again on Olelo Channel 54. So I sure hope to see you next time. Please tune in on Thursdays at 2 o'clock. Thank you.
Okay, we're back. We told you we'd come back, and we came back. That's the thing. All right, and we have Manning Tate and Derek Esibill. They're from Nalu Studies and Wired. Wired's a long acronym. I like that acronym. It sounds like a tech magazine, but it's not, is it?
No,
And
no, it's not.
PACES.
And PACES, and we're talking about Pacific American Foundation. And of course, this is Where the Road Leads. And our title today is Kids, Coasts, and UAVs. So as we left it, this was very exciting. Before the break, I was asking you guys to tell me what the challenges are and how you're going to deal with them. Why don't you go first, Ted?
Okay. The challenges that the UAVs face is fundamentally one of education and one of awareness and one of misunderstanding and misappreciation. And that extends all the way from the legislature down to the guys in the retail stores who are selling these things. So we have a volatile commercial environment and lack of regulation or control. That's all starting to come together. In fact, just this week, it was Department of Transportation in the U.S. Department of Transportation announced that all UAVs are going to have to be registered. And you can't believe this. They picked a target of December 15th to have that.
I haven't heard of the government moving that
Wow.
fast in a long time.
And that was December 15th, 2015, by the way. And so there's a lot of policy and procedure to go through. I think that's almost a bridge too far. But the idea is actually is necessary. We've got to control these things so that people can understand how to get a hold of each other, how software changes can be made, how regulations can be promulgated, and reasonable and safe behavior can occur. And registration's the start of that. We wouldn't let people go on the roads without registering their cars, and we can't let this happen as well. On the other hand, at the university level, to address the issues, we have a strong interest at the vice presidential level in the university to try to pull together the programs to stabilize them, standardize them, and make them more broadly available to the incoming kids and such. So there's a strong desire to have a valid program here. And the manufacturers are willing to support us. We have a ability to get our UAVs in operation very quickly, as you know, Derek, from what we've been able to do in the past. So we just need to all sit down together and do it and determine what the path we want to follow is, and then figure out how best to get there. So I would
Manning,
say,
have you got a monologue you'd like to add to that?
Let me open my notes here. No, Tim's giving me a hard time. No, I think one of the limitations, and you're absolutely right. I mean, I think there needs to be some, as much as we, are not the greatest fans of regulating everything, by the same token, there's a safety issue. I mean, currently anyone can buy a UAV, right? Matter of fact, for us, I know I work with PACES, and in that program, the kids do 4 weeks of training on equipment, but this tool is not one of them, right? So we have to have someone like Dave Krupp, for example, Dr. Krupp at PACES, to operate this thing. And so the last 2 weeks is independent research. And so you're kind of limited because you're trying to get these things, you need visual information. We're working on the Waikulu local fish pond. We're trying to get aerial data of that. And so, we want to be safe, we want to do it right, and but this is a tool. That's why I asked you before. The kids need to know how to use these things, and they need to be trained and on safe procedures, just like anything else, right?
Well, Derek, these things are just as Ted said. It's a flying platform, a skyhook.
Yeah.
Great concept.
Yep.
And on the skyhook, you can put any number of sensors. I know you're interested in the sensors.
Absolutely.
What would you put on the skyhook?
Well, I think right off the bat, having some humidity sensors and being able to check that out and get some metadata on weather and atmospheric conditions would be wonderful. But really, I'm very interested in the imagery. And if we can get multispectral imagery and get kids to understand what that is and why that's important, and how we can use that to better build maps of where we live, to see where our endemic species living, especially when we're looking at plants, where are the invasives coming in, and how do we better manage the land that we have so that everybody can live fruitfully. And when I say everybody, I mean from the tiny microbe in the soil, and as a matter of fact, that Ken and Ken Kaneshiro and Stuart Donaghy and a student from Ilani School have discovered a microbe that isn't found anywhere else, and they're pushing for it to become the state microbe.
State microbe.
So, which is you know, which is wonderful. And I know microbes kind of, folks are like, what's that? But if we can get a gushy, warm feeling about that, that would be wonderful. And that's one way of doing it. But understanding how to manage from the smallest level all the way up to the giant banyan trees and the albizia that are plaguing us. And then humans, where do we fit in that? Businesses, where does that fit in there? And we can all coincide and we all co-live together in a harmonic way.
We have to study it.
But we have to be thoughtful in how we go about doing this.
Yeah. I wanted to, sorry, man, go ahead, man.
I love the perspective that it provides. We were up at, one of the labs we run is, we use the outdoors of the classroom, both of us do. And one of the labs that we have is actually at the Poly Lookout. We actually go from the highest point we can get to, which is the Poly, make our way down to O'Malley Botanical Garden, and make our way down. So kids are doing environmental assessment as they move down from ridge to reef. And what's interesting is, this last time a parent brought his quadcopter. I didn't know how far these things go. I take my hat off to you, Ted, man. This thing was like half a mile out there. When I saw the video that came back to us of the Poly, and just the shots were incredible. I mean, there's, like Derek said, there's so much we can understand. The perspective is just different.
Yep.
You know, I was telling you guys that we just submitted a video to OC16, our weekly video, and this time it's on Suzanne Case's recent remarks. She just took over as chair of DLNR. She made some remarks last week at the Harvard Club, and she talked about, among other things, she talked about how DLNR needs help from the public, from kids, from organizations
That's
like
us.
your organization.
Yeah.
Well, that's
And
what,
I wonder if you could talk about how you can help her, how that interface would work, how the kids would be deployed, if you will, with the DLNR to help the state.
well, specifically especially with the WIRED program, Watershed Investigations, Research, Education, and Design, kids are out in their own ahupua'a, and they are making water quality measurements that the state doesn't have the resources to make in a very consistent level. And so they're getting all of that information. They can also go ahead, and we haven't introduced this yet, but it's part of what we would like to do, is mapping where those invasives are and determining where the endemics are, and then engage in restorative work. And all
That's a core point for DLNR. It's one of their missions.
Yeah.
And we have not a workforce, a learning force, because this is what they need to know.
Yeah.
It's written into the Common Core standards, as well as in the NGSS, Next Generation Science Standards, and into the present HICCUPS 3 standards for the public schools. So why not pull the kid out of the four walls of the classroom where they're learning about the world and put them into the world where they are learning about their own community and addressing the needs of that community specifically.
And helping the agency responsible.
Absolutely.
And it's-
And Derek,
Absolutely.
in
That's one of
addition
the
to that, I
critical-
think one interesting point when regarding DLNR or any organization that's bureaucratic in nature, the DNLR in particular has a lot of different departments, and they have sort of a lot of overlapping responsibilities and some underlapping responsibilities. The programs you're speaking of at the educational level don't have any concerns with the barriers. They're going to deal with the problem in a holistic sense at the Ahupua'a level. And we might be able to see, the kids can probably see perhaps something that we can't, about how better to structure our bureaucratic operations in order to represent the land that they're supposed to deal with, which is the Ahupua'a, which does not recognize bureaucracies.
Yeah.
Right, and that's part of the issue here, is that ancient Hawaiians managed the Ahupua'a as an entire system.
One entity.
One entity that extended from the mountaintop to beyond the reef. And if we can go ahead and kind of look backwards to move forwards, I think that would be a beautiful thing.
But it's also, one of the things that we talked about is the partnerships involved. I mean, Nalu, WIRED, and PACES are all three composed, and we're blessed to have this, is just an amazing number of partners. DLNR being one.
Absolutely.
U.S. Fish and Wildlife being another. NOAA for sure. And,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, UH Manoa, Seymour.
EPA,
Yeah.
I mean, just
We're very fortunate.
Castle Foundation has
Doesn't,
been
and nothing include the
wonderful.
nonprofits doing their work, you know, and so we are very blessed to have a number of organizations that work with us. That being said, you know, having a partnership with DLNR, it's a partnership and relationship to me has always been about two people coming together. It's not about I need equipment from you or I need this from you. It's like, so when we sit down to talk about this, what does DLNR need from us? What can we provide for them? They need data.
Exactly.
Right? We need maybe equipment or some expertise. So they share and we share, and together it's a win for the student, it's a win for the community, it's a win for the environment, it's a win for education. And that's
And I
think,
must say, we also need a model that takes those individual data and assembles them and puts them together in the larger comprehensive picture, so
I
you can
agree.
see those cause and effects.
Well, that's-
We really need to pull the cause and effect out of this.
yes.
Out of
Right.
this,
No, or
Right.
is it working? You're right, you're absolutely right.
Yep.
And is it working? I think that's, you know, like I said, with the relationships we have, it allows us to do a number of things. And I think we are seeing these young people as, Ted, as the next generation of the workforce, the scientific workforce. So citizen science and having the young person be in the role of the investigator. And that's actually what PACES does. Like I said, they have 2 weeks to come up with almost a master's level research project.
Exactly.
I know it because I run the thing with Rob Hutchison and Dave Krupp. And we don't sleep for 2 weeks. It's because it's their project, Ted.
You know, a fantastic additional outcome here, and again, Joe Correa is not on the line, but if he was here, he would speak to the high level of need for what you're talking about, because those kids today will be the landowners of tomorrow.
Yes.
And if they're better educated and better able to see from a community perspective how the hard land, the soft land being the beach and the dunes,
Yep.
the Mackay and the Moana all work together, that would be something we don't have today. And that would so improve our ability to see how to take care of where we started the conversation, coastal management. And Joe would speak that much more effectively than I can. But he sees the whole system. He sees the filtering function of the beach, the dune storage and sand storage of the dunes, the effect of the landside drainage and such affecting the coral, as you know, Manning, from your interaction.
Yeah,
with
yeah.
And the filtering of nutrients from our wetlands.
yeah.
Yep.
And even the effect of the crabs and the sand turtles living in the sand and how they clean up the water before it, or the debris before it gets into the ocean. We haven't even talked about subterranean groundwater discharge,
Exactly.
a major factor here. We need to have everybody together, and I can think of 2 or 3 more vectors here. We have the coastal geology people, Craig Glenn and his gang, and Sidney Hunter. We have the educational architect and Brandon
Chip
Brennan.
Fletcher as well. He was out at that
Yeah,
site.
yeah, yeah.
Sure.
We need to get everybody together one day in December and lay out a plan for next year.
Good idea.
Absolutely.
So this is a conversation
Can I
that
make
has
one-
only
can I make
just
one comment?
started.
This
We're
is-
out of time, actually.
Oh, I think, well, one thing, just leave you with one thing to think about is that, I know Puake had told me a long time ago, Nogamara, the UH language, he said, we will not take action to protect what you don't have an emotional connection to. You will not malama what you don't have aloha for. So the goal is to get our kids and us to fall in love, you know, our community to fall in love with the environment. And if you fall in love with the place you live, you will take care of it.
Yeah,
Yep.
what a great idea, what a great thought. That's Manning Tate and Derek Esibill, and of course our remote host, who's actually a true leader in this matter.
We're coming after you, Ted. We need your help, man.
Yep, love it. Yep. Where the road leads, we're talking about kids, coasts, and UAVs. Great discussion, but there's a lot more that we have to talk about.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Ted.
Jay.
Thank you,
You're welcome,
Manning.
everybody.
Thank you,
Thank you
Derek.
all for coming on.